Welcome to the Old Men of the Three with JJ Redick and Tommy Alter, presented by Cash App and brought to you by 342 Productions. This is episode 87. Mikal Bridges. Tommy, Mikal's one of the up-and-coming players in the league that we are both big fans of. He's taken a step in each year of his career. He's coming off a really deep playoff run where he played really well. He's taken another jump this year. He signed a massive contract. We get into a lot of NBA stuff with him, as well as him getting drafted by the Sixers, which was his hometown team. His mother worked for the team. This is it's a phenomenal story.
Yes. Amazing guest. I'm surprised it's taken us this long to have him on. I think that's our bad more than his bad. He's been wanting to come on. You also get into a funny story with you guys coming back from the bubble,
yes,
which I think we start with.
So I'll just say now, to that point, I wanted to mention this. Ty Jerome in Oklahoma City. If you listen to this,
we're coming to Oklahoma City at some point. By the way.
If anybody listens to this and wants to tag Ty Jerome, he owes me $950. He can send it to me on Cash App. Lots of amazing NBA stuff happening, and we get into the Suns winning streak with Mikal, and they're on a phenomenal run right now, 13 in a row. When we recorded this, I can't remember the exact number, but they were on this streak. I think it was at 9 in a row when we talked to them. The other team that's playing really well right now, Tommy, flying under the radar. If you look at during the Sun streak, last 13 games, the two teams with the best record besides the Suns, obviously the Warriors. The other team is the Nets. They're playing really well. 11-2. They've got the third best net rating over those 13 games. They're starting to figure things out.
Well, so I was going to ask this because there was a pretty collective freak out after that Warriors loss the other day. And yes, it was an emphatic win for the Warriors, but also it's the NBA. I mean, that happens. The worst teams beat the best teams some nights. You know, it's not the end of the world. Do you think that a lot of this sort of like uproar is just totally overblown, or do you feel like this? Why do you think that they, with a team that has Kevin and James, and you know, a bunch of really good role players, why are they flying under the radar?
Well, slow start right out of the gates. And then in this 13-game streak, they lose to the Warriors by a bunch. Let's be honest, although it was at Barclays, that was a road game. That was a Warriors home game. Steph had the crowd in his hands. He was playing to the crowd. He's the greatest showman in basketball right now. I look at an NBA season like this. You break it down into fifths. You break it down into fourths. You break it down into halves. And we're about a fifth of the way through the season right now. And in each fifth or quarter or half of the season, you have different measuring stick games. And the Warriors-Nets was a measuring stick game. So we can say right now that the Warriors are a better team right now than the Nets. But this week, the Nets have a couple more measuring stick games. We look at their schedule. Wednesday night, they play the Celtics on ESPN. On Saturday, they have a huge game against the Suns at home. The Suns play the Knicks Friday night. That could be win number 14 in a row. The Nets get to host them the following night on Saturday. So this week for the Nets, again, I think is another measuring stick game. And a lot has been said about the Celtics struggles. They're playing better. They're 7-2 since Marcus Smart called out Tatum and Brown. The Bucks are also playing well now. The Bucks have won 4 in a row. They were kind of flying under the radar for not getting off to a great start too. Have a little bit of a finals hangover.
And we talked about this. We talked about this last week, but they just were not healthy.
Yes.
I mean, it's hard to judge a team like that when the three aren't playing.
Yes. And if you look at the game last week on Wednesday night, the ESPN game on Wednesday night, they beat the Lakers at home. Giannis goes for 47. That was only the third game that Drew, Chris, and Giannis played together. They are undefeated now because they've won subsequent games since that game. That was the third game. They were 3-0 at the time. They're undefeated when those three guys played. So their 10-8 record is a little deceiving. Obviously, we don't have any of these lines for these games. The Pistons are at the Bucks tomorrow. We don't have the lines currently for these games. Nets Celtics, Nets Suns, Pistons Bucks, all games I'm looking forward to. I want to see if the Bucks can continue this roll. A win streak is not a win streak till you hit 5 games. They win Wednesday night against the Pistons.
Is that true?
They got,
did you just make that up? Is that
no?
a fact?
That's my personal definition of a win streak.
So 4 games doesn't count.
You've won 4 in a row, but it's not a win streak.
Wait,
a streak is 5 in a row.
So I was gonna bring this up because the T-Wolves, maybe at a different level than some of the other teams we're talking about, but the T-Wolves have won 4 in a row as of this taping. Do you think when it's a team like that that's struggled so sort of mightily out of the gate, that counts as a win streak if you're not the Suns or you're not the Nets or you're not a team that breaks off these runs all the time?
Tommy, everybody has a different definition of what a win streak is. I'm telling you my definition. This is CP and I used to talk about this all the time.
What was
when we
his?
were at the Clips, we'd be in the huddle pregame, and we would say if we had won 4 in a row, we'd be like, win streak and a win streak unless you've hit 5. 5 is a win streak. We got the same definition. Everybody's different on this. Everybody's different on this. Everybody has a different measuring stick for win streaks. If you wanted to bet on these games once the lines come out, maybe even do a little parlay, you can go to FanDuel app and bet that. You can go to sportsbook.fanduel.com. The app is super easy to use. Obviously, you have to be 21 and over. The age and location restrictions apply. You see the full terms again at sportsbook.fanduel.com. To me, look, it's fun to play around on the app. It's fun to bet on games. It's fun to bet on the futures. We've talked a bunch about the futures. This is just an easy way to get involved with the game further. FanDuel has a bunch of promos. They at times will give you free money. If you sign up for FanDuel, please use the promo code JJ.
I have another question for you tomorrow about a game tomorrow. 76ers Warriors.
Yes.
So Joel's not playing still.
Yes.
But the Sixers have been frisky.
Yeah.
For all of their issues. I mean, give credit to Doc and give credit to those guys because, they have not the sack game the other night, nobody was playing. And Maxi's obviously been great all year, but they seem to have different bench guys every other night, if not going off, at least doing their part. And they're staying alive while an MVP candidate has not been active.
Let's assume Joel is healthy for the most part the rest of the year. He's probably going to miss a couple games here and there, but let's say he's healthy for the most part the rest of the year following this bout with COVID. They are one of the most complete teams, even without Ben Simmons. They are one of the most complete teams in the NBA. I like their versatility on defense. Obviously, Joel will be in drop coverage a lot, but they have good wing defenders. Matisse Thybulle can guard multiple positions. And as you mentioned, the thing I love about their team is their bench. George Yang, underrated pickup this offseason, balling. Shake Milton, Furkan Korkmaz, both those guys have taken another jump this year. And to your point, Tyrese Maxey has been on a tear. I think over his last 7 games, he's averaging, or last 5 games, he's averaging 24 on 50% shooting from 3. He's proven he can be a starting point guard in the NBA. And he's like 20 years old or 21 years old. He's phenomenal.
So this is just you talking, not based on any conversation you've had or anything like that. But do you think that this changes the calculation a little bit about what to do? And I was gonna ask about the Kyrie situation is very different, but with Ben in particular, you're sitting on this asset, which is a multiple-time All-Star under the age of 25. Whether or not they're going to get who they thought they were going to get for him in September, you can make a team that is potentially a Eastern Conference Finals, maybe even a Finals team with him sitting on the sidelines doing nothing. Couldn't you get 2 or 3 pieces for him that could potentially put them over the top?
There you go, Tommy. And if I were to put my GM hat on, I would strongly consider that. However, I do understand the sort of thesis that you trade a star player for a star player. And I've been on teams before where the pieces didn't mix. We had star players, the pieces didn't necessarily mix. And at times, I felt like had we traded one player for a couple really good players, it may have made us a more complete basketball team. But that's not how everyone thinks. And I'm not saying Daryl Morey is wrong. I'm not saying Josh Harris and David Blitzer are wrong in wanting a star player for Ben Simmons. But you could definitely make an argument if the Sixers were to get two or three really good players, some assets for the future, some first round picks, they're in a better position than they are by just waiting around for the season and having him sit on the sideline. 100%.
What do you think Maxi's the best comp for him is?
That's a great question. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I don't know if there is.
He's really good.
You always sort of compare players that are the same size and have the same skill set. There's a little bit of Trae Young in his game. And I'm not saying Maxi's as good as Trae Young. I want to be very clear on that. But there's a little Trae Young in his game. He's good in pick and roll. He can shoot the three. He's made a huge leap this year in shooting the three. He punishes teams that go under pick and rolls. And he's got that float game. He's got that Trae Young float game. So if you're in drop coverage against him and he gets downhill, he's not necessarily going all the way to the basket. He's shooting that little in-between shot. I think that's probably the first comp that jumps to mind. And again, I'm not saying he is Trae Young. Trae is a star, a superstar in the NBA, but Maxey has some Trae Young in his game.
So one other good game tomorrow, and then we'll get off of tomorrow, is Pistons-Bucks. First Pistons game since the brouhaha on Sunday, I guess you could call it. One aside I think we have to bring up, just because, we'd like the show to be as topical as possible, is you had a nice appearance on ESPN this morning. We're taping this on Tuesday night. You had an appearance on ESPN this morning with our friend Stephen A. That has seemingly taken over the internet this afternoon. I didn't watch it live, but I was certainly sent it by 5 different people.
If you watch the game, which you do,
I played the game, but I played the game, Stephen A. And I played against LeBron in the playoffs.
Okay.
And I've played against LeBron. I played against LeBron for 15 years.
Do you care to comment?
I would just say this. I've done a bunch of different hits on ESPN. I'm really looking forward to doing games. I had a conversation earlier this morning with the gentleman in charge of scheduling events, as they call them. So I'm looking forward to doing games. But of the things I've done, I of course love doing SVP. I always love doing SVP, which I did last Wednesday night. I really enjoy doing First Take. Stephen A. is one of the most talented people on television, period. Sports, entertainment, politics.
It's an objective fact.
No,
he could talk about anything.
He is so talented. And so I've loved the back and forth with him. And my thing today was, we got into a little bit of debate about whether the suspensions were warranted. He felt like Isaiah Stewart should have got more. And one of the takeaways I had was, we're going to punish Isaiah Stewart more because he's bigger and stronger and nobody could tackle him. That's basically what it came down to. Like, guys are entitled to be mad. He didn't throw any punches. But then the part that Stephen A. kind of had a decent back and forth on was this idea that people don't fear LeBron. And he alluded to some physical fear. He alluded to some shit-talking fear. My argument against that, of course, is that LeBron has grown up in a different age than Michael Jordan did. LeBron has grown up in an age where everybody has a microphone, everybody has a Twitter account, there's 24/7 news cycle. We, collectively, as a society, have damn near tried everything to somehow discredit or dismantle LeBron's legacy. And all that guy has done is win, break records, build enterprises, build schools. There's certainly a level of respect, but for the fear factor, if you get into a playoff series with LeBron, if you're prepping to play LeBron, you're certainly fearful of who he is as a player. Physically, I took a charge on LeBron my 5th year in Orlando. I caught his spin move perfectly. I ended up with 11 stitches under my eye. And I was standing there knowing he was going to make that spin move. And was I standing there in fear? Abso-fucking-lutely. Abso-fucking-lutely I was.
What about mentally? I feel like every 2 weeks we have somebody on this show. Kyle Korver's former teammate is the most recent example of this a couple weeks ago. I guess Caruso came after him and said the same thing. It's almost every week we have somebody on talking about how there's nobody that they play with who preps and understands the game at a higher level than LeBron does. And these are the guys that are either playing with him or, in certain cases, all-star players who are playing against him and watching him take their plays in the middle of a playoff series.
As much of a physical talent, and when I say physical, I mean everything. The body, the skill set, the game, all of the things that make LeBron great as a basketball player, he's equally as strong in the mental department. And he commands a certain level of fear that no one in my generation, with the I would say there's one other guy, and that's Steph Curry. Like you playing against him, there's a level of respect and fear playing against him, because you know at any given time he can go on one of those Steph Curry runs and score 29 and a quarter and bring his team back. I've been witness to it. I've been on the court while that's happening. I've been on the other side of that. You fear Steph Curry. You fear LeBron. Absolutely. Tommy, let's get to this awesome conversation with our guy, Mikal Bridges. Ty Jerome, $950. I need it now.